And good afternoon. We're back in House Transportation on Tuesday, February 10th. And we've got an exciting topic this afternoon here at 3 o'clock. 2 years ago, I think it was, maybe a little bit before that. 2 years ago in the T-bill, there was language authorizing the secretary to potentially sell the Caledonia State Airport. And now the agency is back for a request to some of that language. That's as much as I'm going to get into it. The rest I'm going to ask you, Trini, to kind of give the committee. We have, to be fair, we've got at least five new members that weren't here when we passed the language. So for the five of them, they didn't go through the piece and whatnot. So a little bit of background, a few minutes. We've got plenty of time, but some background on sort of how we got to where we are today and then what we need. I know you're coming to ask for a potential change to the T-bill or an addition, an amendment to the T-bill right now, but five of the members don't have any kind of background on why we're here today. So if you could start with that and then take the rest of your presentation from there, I would appreciate it. And welcome.
Thank you. So for the record, I'm Trini Broussard, and I'm the Director of Intermodal Development for the Agency of Transportation. Worked with these one of you over the years back in my public transit days. So a few years ago, we went through an aviation plan, where we look at all our airports, what they do, where they are, and realized we had some duplication in the Northeast Kingdom area. But we kept it. We left it in the plan, thinking there's value to it. It's bringing stuff. We were approached by Beta on the pieces of what they could do at a airport like that and the development they could bring. And we talked about some of our limitations and how quickly we could program funding for runway repaving and whatnot, and what the FAA looks at for it. It was very clear that we were years off from any of the improvements needed at the airport when we look at our priority model and we look at funding limitations in the region. So they came to us and said, would the state consider selling it? And we were like, oh, kind of a novel idea. Let's explore that. And so we went through the process. We did some work on our own. Then we came to the legislature and had the conversations. And the decision was made to go for language, which allowed us to either go into a long-term lease or to sell the airport and put it out in. So we did that in August of 23. We issued the RFP and they came back in. It took almost a year to work with the FAA on the evaluation. That we had one response. It was from Craft, which is made up of some of the members of Beta. And we looked at all the things that they wanted to do up there, how quick they could do it, and what it would mean to the Northeast Kingdom. And it kind of was an easy decision to come to. And the agency entered into a purchase and sales agreement with Craft in September of 24. We thought the process from there would be rather quickly to get through the FAA as we looked at their rules, but little did we know we were going to have an administration change, a reauthorization of the federal aviation bills. And what did they change? They changed the language on releasing an airport. And so we were like, and we're still sitting here today and they keep saying, well, the language doesn't apply, but our guidance on how to implement it hasn't come out. So we are meeting with them again to try to find the path forward to allow this to transfer. In the meantime, there has been some property abutting the airport that is sold to the group that owns Craft. There is a house being constructed right now by this group on land abutting the airport that has a hangar underneath it. So the grand list in Lyndonville is growing, which was one of the things we anticipated would happen. They're in most of the schools up there, providing some STEM classes and interaction with after school programming. They're working with the college up there right now on teaching some classes and bringing in some of the skills that they need. And actually driving a lot of interest in aviation and that whole field, from the mechanic side to the pilot side to research and development. And so, what we were kind of engaged in conversation when we came for the original language, we're seeing happen, even though we haven't quite got over the hurdle of getting the FAA to release the airport yet. So that's kind of the summary. We could go into more detail of sort of some of those pieces if anybody wanted it.
There's always questions.
I know, and it's
Representative Pouch has one already.
So you were saying some years back, the V-Trans was already looking at this airport and questioning whether we continue to support it, or how would we, or is it necessary or in duplication?
So when we do a system plan for the airports, we look at where they're all located and the distance between the airport and Coventry. The one here in Berlin and the Island Pond Airport made Coventry kind of a duplicative airport. It served a lot of the same people.
Would you say that's why Beta approached for that particular airport?
I don't think so. When you go to release an airport from the FAA, there's the infamous buyback, right? The feds want the money they put into it back. And we were on the verge of looking at kind of moving the project along to do a runway reconstruction, to do some apron work. So we hadn't invested millions of dollars in that airport yet, like we had the others. And I think that's some of the attraction.
So there'd be less buyback.
Buyback. And they could do that work themselves at a quicker pace than we could.
Representative Case?
What Craft has something to do with what Beta Technologies or something, or?
Yeah.
And then Craft's owned by somebody else. It's owned by like Berkshire Hathaway and so another company that owns it. So is there any international interest in this? Like, is there overseas
No, you'd
interest in
have to
it?
look up who the actual owners of Craft are, but I
Yeah,
don't
it's
think it's
multiple
other
owners.
companies.
It is.
CARF, no.
Yeah.
What?
Not CARF.
Oh, it's not Craft Foods?
No.
Okay, all right,
No, it's
all right, there you
it's some
go.
of the parties, some of the
That's-
parties that are involved in Beta.
Okay, all right, okay.
Yep.
I'm
No, there's no
confused.
international
All right,
anything in
thanks.
there.
Because I
Not
looked
yet.
up Craft and it's
They-
like, geez, they're
They might
kinda
go to Canada
international.
once in a while, but not as international, I think.
Representative Wells?
What was that original purchase and sales agreement price a couple of years ago?
500,000.
If you can't buy, you're more than willing to lease, or you have a preference to buy or to sell it?
Yeah, I don't want to buy it.
My mistake.
Just to be clear. The preference is for them to own it.
Okay,
For obvious reasons, if you're going to invest millions of dollars into a facility, you kind of like to own it. And not
Makes
have a
sense.
lease that can end at some point and you're, negotiating with a different party.
Yeah.
I think that's the main one, but I think there's some advantages to them owning it too, when they look at their business structure and
Mhm.
what they've got going on. If we own it and lease it, we're still tied into a lot of the federal regulations. So like non-aviation stuff, they kind of don't, we are very limited what we can do. If they own it, they can do some of that. Some of the work they're doing is with Kingdom Trails and looking at, could they do some hangars with some living space in them where people could come in and then go use the trails and do that kind of stuff. We would be limited on, hey, we're non-residential as a public entity. We've got some of those limitations that don't meet their business plan.
thanks.
Europe?
Are you gonna get into the language here? I mean, I kind of went ahead and I see we're extending how long, so we had a couple years to sell it. Now we're asking for more, but there is one piece taking out that it won't be
Yes.
continued as a public, so you'll talk about that?
Once we
Okay.
have access to put it up there, but we're
Oh, okay.
definitely, yep, you're good. But we're looking at background questions still at this point.
So, Mr. Chair, what I would say is, given the number of folks at the table who have not been exposed to this language before, when we do get to the language, I'll have trainees start at the top and walk through. Because they included that entire piece there.
Okay. Representative White?
Yeah, just curious, okay, so you, there's a purchase and sale agreement for $500,000 in place. And how many acres is the airport?
Just gotta ask this. We guessed in the 50 to 60 because I don't have any of the documents with me to look at it.
And if the sale, assuming the sale goes through, does that $500,000 go to the federal government, or does that come back into the agency?
It has to be invested in the aviation program. So it'll be invested in
In
the
the
other.
other airports?
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Any more background that you want? Please.
Sorry.
Representative McCoy, you're good.
Pardon this, but this $500,000, you could cheap it.
We actually had it appraised
Oh, you did?
and the
Okay.
appraisal came in a little bit higher, but not much. It came in at 6 something, 620, rings a bell in that range. And then it was, it's hard. The condition of the airport is what dragged it down some. And then the fact that they gotta stay open to the public,
Oh, they
right?
do?
That was a requirement. Yeah.
Okay.
And we'll get into the language change, but they're in the purchase and sales agreement, in the language, they have to stay open to the public. And so there's a certain standard of care that has to take place, and there's certain things that they have to do still.
Okay, so it's within.
Got it.
Yeah.
Representative Burt?
So you followed all the procedures and then where this was completely finalized, they're all changed now? I mean, what's the?
Some of it has on us. In reauthorization, there was some language change around releasing an airport at the federal level. And they have a guide coming out. And it's been over a year and we haven't seen it yet. So, we're trying to get it through on the old language still. And, we're hoping that we can get the right audience that'll realize this is something they ought to do for you and for the purchaser. Yes. Yes, we thought it was gonna be an easy one.
Yeah.
Wrong answer.
So you can, sure you have the delegation working on this too.
We've been down a lot of roads
Yeah.
trying to get this one. We're still working it. We're hopeful.
You're all set? Representative Keys, you're up.
So Beta is a relatively new company to us. And you've reviewed their, or the agency has reviewed their income statement, their balance sheet, and their debt structure.
So, we're not selling it to Beta, we're selling it to Kraft, which is it's some of the same investors in Beta own Kraft. And we go through all their financials and looked at it. And we also, looked at whether they had staff with the skills to operate the airport to meet those needs. And we're comfortable that they do.
Have they operated an airport before?
Some of their staff has, some of
So
the
they
folks that will be
hired
on their staff will.
So they've hired people to run it that have run an airport before.
They've identified people they will hire to run it. Yes.
So they haven't hired. Okay, no, that's fine.
If you
That's fine.
don't
No,
own
if
it,
you don't
you
have an
wouldn't,
airport,
right?
right? No, I get it. Yeah. And then, do we know the business relationship between Kraft and Beta? Is there, in other words, what I'm concerned about is there cross, geez, I'm gonna lose this phrase, but is there the cross indemnification between their debt? Thank you.
They're two separate entities, but
That's
I don't
fine.
know if they're
That's fine.
cross indemnified.
But if you do such a thing and one fails, then the other one has the obligation, and if it doesn't have the substance to do it, then the deal is done.
So if something happens to Kraft,
Yes,
the airport reverts to the state.
it does.
Yes.
Okay. In
That's
all
part of the
cases.
deal.
In all cases.
Yep. And if they decide just to sell it and they're not going under, we have the right of first refusal.
Okay. All right.
So
Now, is it, so, anyway, you ought to put something in about we buy it back for what we sold it to them for.
Oh, yeah.
I don't care.
Except they're gonna invest millions of dollars in it, so
Well,
that's a little
fine.
hard
That-
for us.
If they
to do
fail,
that. Yeah.
it's a sunk investment.
Yeah.
And, you know, so, well, I have real issues with a neocent investment group, with a neocent company that has been involved in the Epstein files, that want to, I would prefer a lease, frankly, but, you know, I defer to the experts, but that's my concerns.
Representative.
So, being on public, I don't remember when, what years, they are publicly traded. Now, does anybody remember?
Just a few years ago.
Within the last year.
Last year.
Last year, okay. It was just.
But it's not Beta that's gonna hold it, right? It's this other group.
Yeah.
And the individual, one of the individuals of Craft is the one building the
Okay, so I
house
guess
there now.
this, so the individuals from Craft, did you say, what's the connection to Beta?
They're both part of the ownership of Beta. Well, they're
Oh,
not
so
now
they
because it's
are,
publicly,
they
right?
are.
Like they're, but
Okay.
they are, yeah.
Okay, so there is the connection.
Yeah.
Okay.
Representative Casey.
Who is Kraft? What is it? What are they? What's their claim to fame? Are they just a holding company? They
Just a
just,
holding company.
and they're from where? All over the place, or they,
No, it's two members of Beta.
that's all it is, it's just two members, it's Kraft.
Yeah.
Okay,
Debating whether I want to. We authorize the agency to go ahead and explore the sale. I guess we would as a committee. We will continue to ask tons of questions and that's great. But we did expect that they would do their due diligence and have the level of legal representation for the background piece and whatnot, which we're not necessarily qualified to do or not. But it is a unique situation in that the expiration date is coming up and it has to come back through the committee. And so if there's more background questions, either now or as we go forward, please feel free to continue to ask them. I guess now we're kind of moving on to, but we will see what exactly was the original language, and then we'll see what the changes are. And then we'll ask at one point what other members of the committee want, what more they want to hear. So Representative Boucher, jump in.
Maybe I'm wrong, but you know, you said we authorized them to explore, we authorized them to sell it. So.
Or enter a long-term lease
Okay, that could be, yeah, but I mean. and
within
now-
a limited time frame.
Yes, within a limited time frame, and we're coming up to that,
Correct.
yes, okay.
So I take it there was only one person to come forward with an offer. Who was it?
Correct.
Right, no.
Yep. For some reason, nobody wants to own an airport. That's why the state does, I guess.
Yeah. It was a golf course, it'd be something different.
Want me to walk you through the language?
That would be great.
There?
That's
Okay.
what's next, I think.
Okay.
But we'll take questions still as we go.
Yeah. So the language that we received back in 23 authorized us to issue an RFP for the lease or purchase of the airport. That's what we did. We issued that on August 2nd. The next paragraph talked about what would be included, which was the business plan. Their plans for investment in not only the airport, but the surrounding community, which is some of what I touched on. And, reaching out to the institutions and whatnot. They've done an exceptional job of that, even though they haven't purchased it yet.
So, just a procedural question. How was this marketed? Was a real estate firm obtained to market this, or was just AOT calling up the one particular interested buyer that they knew? I'm just wondering, was this put out there? Are we gonna get pushback from the Fed saying, hey, you didn't even put this out to market? This was like an arm's length transaction on this.
We put it out the way we do all our other bids.
Okay.
It was out on the state's bidding
What- oh,
site. It
okay.
was on V-Trans site.
Okay, no, I was just
It
curious
was
about that.
quite wide. The feds have approved everything we've done to date. We
Okay.
just can't get over this one hurdle of what it takes to release it. And so actually I was with the lawyers just before I came here on it. And I think we might have found a loophole in the federal statute, which we're gonna push it. We're gonna see if we can exploit that to get it done. But yeah,
Covert operations.
I know, it's been challenging.
Before you do. Before you do, even if its sale were to go through, doesn't the FAA have some, or does it have no interaction with a privately owned airport? It must have some level of interaction and control over an airport that flying planes in and out of the airspace. So
They have some.
there must be some level of activity involvement that's still there. So
Like licensing or
how does that,
anything.
I'm not saying that you would, but I would
Yeah,
assume they're not, the release thing doesn't mean that they're not involved in them in an airport operation in some way, I would assume.
so the FAA has regulations that pilots have to follow. And that controls a lot of the like how they operate in and out of airports. And they have certain standards that airports have to meet. This one will be, when it's all done, will be privately owned, public access. So and that gives them a standard they have to meet for that. And in this case, the feds were involved in some of the efforts of it for like clearing sight lines and whatnot. And there will be certain pieces that will follow the airport that were there in certain requirements. But all these airports, if they're going to be open for the public, have to go through an annual evaluation to make sure their trees aren't growing up in the way and they can see the runway, different things like that. So there's certain safety standards they have to meet still.
Representative Couch and then Representative McCoy.
Said there's like one last hurdle. I'm just wondering, it doesn't have anything to do with naming the airport, does it?
Oh, geez.
Couch runway.
Representative McCoy.
Oh, dear.
So you mentioned it has a yearly inspection. Is the state responsible for that annual inspection? Are they responsible to let the state know or the federal government know that they have passed the inspection? Or if they need to, like, if there's if there's tree clearing to be safe, are they letting the FAA know that or us?
So the inspections, the data from the inspection goes up to the FAA.
Okay.
And then they come back and tell the owner, so they can tell us on our airports too. You got these
Yeah.
issues, you gotta clear.
Correct.
They'll do the same thing on to the
But
private
even
folks.
because it's a public, it has to be open to the public. The state will not be involved in getting a copy of that yearly. Maintenance. Okay.
Yeah, we won't have to do the maintenance either.
Okay. No, I know we don't have to do the things. It's just be aware that there's maintenance that should be happening. It's available.
We don't on the other ones. Vermont has other airports that are privately held and
Okay.
open to the public.
Okay.
We do help them sometimes with their inspections to complete them, but we're not responsible for
Okay.
the results of
Okay,
it.
so that's the kind of the norm.
That's the norm.
For it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Okay.
So the next paragraph talked about us needing the necessary approval of the FAA. See, if you hadn't put this in here, we would have sold it by now. Just kidding, we would have.
But actually, you would need approval anyway.
Yeah, we need it anyway, yeah.
Thank you for the scolding.
They're asked for.
I know.
If
only.
Permission.
And then the next talks about all of the things that we have to sign up, leases, licenses, different things that are there for power lines, for whatever are there. The lease agreements that folks have that have hangars there now will be turned over, and they've agreed to honor those and work with those folks to stay there. They actually have an aggressive plan to increase it. And then item 2 on that talks about investing in the airport to address deficiencies. This is the runway, the apron changes, those things that they have agreed to do. And we're going to ensure that the airport continues to be a public use airport and that the public has access for aviation use. This, item 4 went in, there was a lot of conversation about it being like an insurance for the public access. The NIPIAS is a national plan. It actually stands for the National Plan for Integrated Airport Systems. And this is basically a database where airports that want to go into it, they meet certain standards for public access. In exchange, they're eligible for federal funds to do some of their projects. Private owned airports are eligible for their funds. Majority of them don't take them because they get all the strings and all the process that goes with it. And they quickly realize that sometimes they don't offset each other with the investment they get. This is one of the pieces that the FAA is hung up on right now with us. And I will tell you, the way that they can get around this is to just go to a NIPIAS unclassified status, which basically says, yeah, we're in there, but we're just not gonna participate. And so they just sit off to the side, which has no benefit to anybody either. But that's the only way they can meet this requirement in the language.
Representative McCoy?
So I guess, it's gonna be a public airport. It still remains open to the public. What would this do that they couldn't do if they weren't in this national plan of integrated airport systems?
The only thing that this gains them is access to federal funding to do their projects if they stay in there. But as a private owned airport, it's harder for them to meet the requirements of NIPIAS to even remain eligible.
Okay.
And then they have a lot of, all the strings we have to meet with our projects, they would have to meet with theirs.
Representative Cook?
So without this, then, they won't be able to, qualify for federal funding.
Correct.
But the paragraph is, above says, continue to be a public use at airport. How is that defined? And I'm not saying they would, but, if they didn't do anything to help the public, does that define they gotta have certain is it defined somewhere, a public airport, has as a minimum these things?
Doesn't list as like assets. A public use airport means anybody can use it. It's open to the public to use for aviation purposes, which was the intent when we got the paragraph above it. So you could get your pilot's license, not have your hangar at that airport, be passing through, be a transient and land there and use the facilities.
Right, so, but to allow the public to land there and get gas or, meet somebody, they gotta have some certain lighting or some radio or, where is it that says, or could I just put in a big long runway and say it's public, anybody can use it? I mean, are there standards, and does this ensure that they meet those minimum? Because we wanted it to continue to be a public airport.
So you can apply to the T-Board and get what they call a restricted landing area, and you too can have a runway in your backyard. And we don't require anything other than that there's no trees sitting in the way when you take off or land. Right? That's about it. And that can be public.
Yeah, so then there's nothing really saying, hey, if it's public, you have to have a restroom.
Right.
Or somebody to help you move your airplane around, or fuel, or not, there's nothing like that. Okay, it doesn't mean they wouldn't do that.
Right.
but, Okay.
Yep.
Representative Cook?
And being a member of this national plan of integrated airport systems, would they require what Representative Couch just asked for? Okay.
So,
Would there be any impact to the current tenants if this is not in there? Everything that we committed or have asked to be committed that they would have and do today, they would continue to be able to do even if this airport is not in this system. It doesn't impact the tenants that are currently there.
There's no impact.
Representative Wells? And then-
And just a comment, it sounds like this is the only way that Caledonia State Airport is going to get this massive influx of funds to improve their whole facility. About the only option, isn't it? Or the quickest option.
It's by far the quickest option.
Yeah,
And there's a lot of development there that the state would never do.
right.
I think when you look at the economic benefit to the Northeast Kingdom for this to sell and be allowed to implement the whole business plan, it's massive.
Sell it.
Brian, Brian.
Senator, we'd love to hear from you.
Senator Russ Ingles, Essex District, one of the people that helped put this deal together in the early stages, along with Senator Nick Mazza and the Senate Transportation Committee. In talks with the group that wanted to come here, it wasn't just the airport they were interested in, it was the area. It was the schools that they had, the Kingdom Trails, the ski academy, the academy in itself, St. J Academy, the Linden Institute, all the schools around there, the road structure that was coming through there as far as where they were. It was just a good spot for them to be there. If anybody's been to Beta and seen all the young kids going through there with the clipboards and the computers and all of that stuff, it was the workforce that they were looking for as well. And they wanted to get, because the Institute and the Academy were international schools, bringing students in from all over the world. They were really interested in that. And so it wasn't the airport, yes, is a bonus to them because that's the business that where they're in. But it was the community that they wanted to be in more than anything. And that's what they wanted to invest in as much as anything when we spoke with them. And I can tell you, talk is cheap, but they're already doing it. They're already there. They're already, as Trini had said, they already have a $4.5 million investment going up that's raising the grand list of the airport. And so that is the bonus part of this, is that we weren't just chosen because we're an airport. We were chosen because of the infrastructure of the public that was there, which is what's good for us. So I just thought it would be important if I added that.
Thank you very much. Representative Wells?
So explain to me what the loophole is. Again,
Which loophole?
I thought you
The one that-
thought you had a loophole to get around.
I
the
didn't
loophole.
explain that.
Oh. And you explain
It's the
that.
sale itself, not around the NIPIAS. The NIPIAS, we just would eliminate that requirement.
Number four.
And the challenge with that is some of the feedback we got from the FAA was, well, how are you going to meet this in a meaningful way? And we're like, well, the word meaningful isn't in the language. And so we've been playing that whole game, and we just feel like if we just remove this from the conversation,
Altogether.
we might get further with them. It seems to be kind of their thing they're hanging on to some almost.
So just by deleting number four, we're not going to add anything else to the language here in this bill. Okay. And then, because these airports don't have to follow this national plan, integrated airport system.
Your airport had a certain criteria, things they have in it that goes into the database of what these airports are. So if you look nationally, there's about 19,000 airports in the country, and maybe a third of them are in NIPIAS.
Yep.
And so a lot of your private held ones choose not to be because of the flexibility it gives them and what they can do.
So the request for this is from the agency to try to help facilitate with the FAA. It's not a request from the buyer,
Correct.
at least the origin of it. Okay. Representative Powell?
And this doesn't stop the buyer from doing this in the future. Becoming.
Becoming in the NIPIAS,
Yeah.
no, they could still do it. Yep, if they chose to.
Okay.
So the rest of the language gave us the option to do a purchase. Talks about the purchase and sales agreement, it talks about the lease. And limiting it, so they couldn't just assign the lease to somebody else without any say. It required us to get a fair market value offer and then to work with the town of Linden, which we did on Not only did they evaluate the RFP before it went out, they evaluated the purchase and sales agreement once we could get it clear from the lawyers that everybody could talk to it about it. We're asking for an 18-month extension. Hopefully not because we need it, but we also didn't think we'd be back here 3 years ago when we got the language. And as we all know, there might be a little volatility at the federal level right now in trying to get some approvals, and so we just added a little bit of time on there to make sure we hopefully get it this time.
Is there any public statement, meeting or letter or piece from the town of Lincoln that you're aware of that they commented on this agreement or that they're? That's right.
Where they, when they
It's just
commented on the original agreement,
The original person sale agreement, yes. Was there any that you're aware of? Otherwise, I'll be answering for it.
the only comments we keep getting from them is, why isn't it done yet? But we did meet with them twice and we walked through all the stuff. I would have to look and see if they actually gave us a formal letter or a vote. I don't think they did a vote because it was a legal document that wasn't out for the public. They allowed it to be released to the town manager, who met with the board in executive session, but I can go back in the file and see what we got. But we
Or we-
worked a lot with them.
Or we may reach out to them if they wanted to issue a statement on it or not. They are specifically mentioned. That's their review and comment. So I'm curious if they did make an official or public review and comment. Representative Keiser?
If I could go a little farther, and this may be completely out of bailiwick, but that's fine. I want to get it on the record. So we're going to get 500, if this goes through, the state would receive $500,000 that needs to be dedicated to other airports in the state.
So any revenues that you generate off of the port has to go back into aviation.
Right. Okay.
And so that,
So is there any thought by the agency about how this was going to be done?
we have not gotten to that yet on what it would be used for. We have a long list of capital projects.
Yes, you do.
So my guess is we would just go to the next one in line and keep moving on it, but
Okay. Thank you.
Would then this relationship with Kraft, it was to be them, would be managed by the current air aviation director moving forward with the agency? Is that intention of who would manage this relationship in the future, or is it just part of the airport interaction and whatnot? I mean, in other words,
the management with
does
Kraft.
this fall under Evan Robinson's after this deal gets done? Is he still, would he be their main
Yeah, I'd
person?
love for that to happen. I'd love for that to happen. I've actually played a pretty forward role with Beta and a lot of the work they're doing in Vermont at our other airports and projects they're looking at there. But I would imagine between Evan and I, we would both be in touch with them.
And how'd you pick 18 months? I'm sorry, is that enough? Was that too little?
I
How'd
don't,
you pick 18 months?
well, it takes 3 months to get into the Federal Register. And then there's the 30 days it has to be out. And then any comments, they have another 3 months to do it. So we figured that's 7 of the months, right there, potentially, if anybody comments on it. And then we figured the rest of the time was sort of what we needed to work through with the lawyers at the federal level to get this released, and then there's cushion in there, so. We'll be hopefully sitting down with the leadership of the FAA in the next few weeks on this topic. To see if we can make some forward progress. Their process requires us to go to the regional level and to do a certain amount of steps with them before we take it up to somebody in the DC area. We have done the regional piece, and we get back the same answer each time, so.
The same answer would be the nippiest thing.
The same answer comes back to, they bring that up, they also bring up the reauthorization. They're claiming that a section of reauthorization makes it so that you can't release an airport from the federal systems. And we disagree with that. And as a matter of fact, some of what we were looking at today was the language, some of the language, and this is probably getting way into the weeds on it, but the language they're citing is for surplus property that was transferred from the federal government down to somebody so you can go way back. And the state took in a lot of these airports in the late sixties, probably. I think 68 is when we took this one on. Some of these airports were started during the war. And they just signed them over to different municipalities that wanted them. Knapp was one of those. We don't think Caledonia was. So what we're doing right now is we're gonna try to, hoping that we're right, that it wasn't one. And then that whole section that they keep quoting doesn't apply. Is what we're gonna try to sell, but we're gonna try to sell it to somebody on the national level. See. That's sort of the summary of it, but I could send you all the good reading if you want.
Any other questions or comments of anybody?
Guess my only comment is, why should we even have a date in there? I mean, it's under contract, we just structure it that you'll play this out until it plays out, given that it's the same contract. I mean, I don't know, I'm not a wordsmith, but just get rid of the time, or November 2027. Our concern back in the day is, we just sort of want to know who it was at the time. We know who the party is. And just structure it that way. But if you do go back to somebody new, then, you need our permission again. But as far as this current party, you just get rid of it. Even that's hot.
Okay.
Apparently. Why you put it in there? Maybe we get Damien to just come up with some language, just, curtailed around this current contract.
So we could potentially do that. Are there other questions or concerns, right? Maybe I'll rephrase it. Or we can talk about it a little bit in committee discussion after our witnesses here, or if there's not more questions for the witness, but some of the things I guess I would ask, is there additional testimony that anybody else wants to hear? Is there any other piece that you may want to bring in and whatnot? I did make a note as an example related to the town and the tenants. And then what's the impact of section 4, if anybody else, usually ask our ledge council these kind of things. And then we might ask for testimony from other areas, or we might not. And I'm not sure that I want to become an expert on FAA release of airports. So, and then now there's a question of, do we need a date? Are there any other questions that people may or may not want to hear about?
I just want to add, Chair, about the town, Christian Johnson's on the board, chair of board. They're very ecstatic, and the stakeholders of the airport that are there now using the airport are very ecstatic as well. They want to see improvements, and they've been very vocal about that, and they feel that this group moving forward has the resources to bring this up to what they would say state-of-the-art airport. So I would not want to take away from your ability to bring in whoever you'd like to talk with, but just with speaking with the town and some of the meetings that we attended earlier, this can't happen soon enough for them. They're very excited, and we're excited as a community as well.
Thank you very much. And that would beg me to question that it's still got till May 1st, whether we get the T-bill done before then or not, right? Was it May 30? And so whether it gets here or not, that part is still, we're not holding it up right now. If we're here past May 1st with the T-bill, it may, it's not going to be a problem.
Even if we go to the Federal Register today, we can't get it done by May 1st.
Right, but so we're not holding it up, but if it drops out for that month or two, that's not going to be a problem. If the T-bill ended up being effective July 1st, or would it need to be upon passage, or is that at all a concern? That's just a technicality, because we're not going to be done by May 1st. Most likely.
We're not gonna stop moving it forward.
I did see a hand come up, Representative White.
Yeah, I appreciate the senators sharing how the town of Linden feels. And I would assume, this sounds like it would be a really good thing for this area of Vermont. I do agree with the chair that it probably makes sense to just invite someone from the town of Linden in, just to be on the record saying what we think they already feel. Aside from, it does feel like 50 acres for $500,000 sounds like a song, particularly to a, you know, a company that's gone public and doing quite well. That's my only concern. It sounds like that's already been negotiated. But otherwise, it sounds like a great, you know, economic opportunity for the area. So I'm in favor of the changes. And
I will just say that I've been involved, I've been in state government for 35 plus years. And I started my career in the agency in public transit in the days when it was a little rugged. And most of the things I've worked on have been very controversial. This one hasn't. It's been a love fest about how do we get it done. So it's, I think it's a great project. And it has just a huge opportunity for the folks up there. Which is why I don't understand why I'm sitting here, because I don't sit and love fest projects. Here I am.
Okay, so, we're going to, thank you very much for coming in and presenting it, for bringing
Thank
it into
you.
language. Senator, thank you for your input. We very much appreciate it.
Thank you, committee, for all that you do. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you. We are adjourned for the afternoon.